This is the best time to be alive as a young person in Nigeria. The reason is very simple. This is the best opportunity we have to clean Nigeria of all the old people who have contributed to the destruction of Nigeria. Those who have been dragging us down, the dead weights, today and not later than February 14, 2019 is the best time to get rid of all of them. We are not going to kill them, there's no violence involved. We are just going to withdraw our services from them. We are not going to be working for them anymore. We are not going to be carrying ballot boxes for them anymore. We are not going to be assassinating for them anymore. We just want our nation back from them. So once again you can say, take it back. Take it back. I want to hear you. Take it back. 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 Take it back. Thank you. Take it back. See, when we started this journey some 6 weeks ago, they said all kinds of things. First they said this crowd we had in Lagos was too small. We went to America to meet with our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. They said, you people are campaigning over the internet. We went to about 3 cities in the US, namely Maryland, Philadelphia, and Detroit. They said, you people are just doing international business. See America where you want to be president. Then we came down to Nigeria. Young people in this country shut down the Muritala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. Then they start to feel afraid. We moved from there because they said, oh, you guys are only Southerners. We went first to Abuja to challenge them in Abuja. The hall was jam-packed. Just listen to me, give you the trajectory. We moved from Abuja straight to Kano. The reason I went to Kano is that in war, you call that kind of a place enemy territory. They said that President Buhari has the biggest number of supporters in Kano, and I wanted to challenge him in Kano. We went there and discovered that it is a lie. The man has no support anywhere, anyhow in Nigeria anymore. The people of Kano, including the Emir of Kano, received us officially as if he knew that we have already been elected to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We moved from Kano to Kaduna and decided to do something on T-Cable. We had a town hall meeting in Arewa House. Wow. Yes, and the place was cool. People from southern Kaduna and people from northern Kaduna that had not seen eye to eye for a long time came and they sat together, Muslims and Christians, and all of them were shouting, take it back, take it back, take it back, take it back, take it back. We then decided to go and disrupt another region of the country, which is the southeast. Yesterday we went to Owerri. The reason is that they've also always lied that the people of the southeast don't want to be part of Nigeria anymore. But we went and tested it. The people of the southeast are not actually hating Nigeria, but they hate the injustice imposed upon them by these useless leaders. And they said to us that they want to be in a Nigeria where they are allowed to practice their trade. They want to be able to move from any part of Nigeria to the other. They don't want herdsmen killing them in their farms. They don't want people to be dividing them with religion. They want the second Niger Bridge, third Niger Bridge, and possibly the fourth and fifth Niger Bridge. That's all they want. So when we got there, the place we're supposed to arrive at 3 p.m. I mean, we're supposed to start at 3 p.m. As usual, our useless aviation sector delayed our flight for 3 hours. These young people waited for us in Owerri from 3 p.m. Some of them had arrived from Oka 3 p.m. until 5 p.m. when we arrived. When we arrived Owerri, it actually took us longer to travel from the airport to the venue because Rochas Okorosha, who is the APC governor, is the most useless governor that I've ever seen. I'm telling you. And this is the reason why all these people must be gotten rid of. I want to encourage all of you, don't let it be that I'm the only one running for president. Anywhere you can occupy it. Go for political positions. There is no senator that is better than you. I'm from Ondo State. I think my senatorial zone, which one is it from our area? Southern Senatorial Zone in Ondo State. The reason I don't know the zone is that the senator who is representing me has never spoken on the floor of the Nigerian Senate. We want vibrant young people to displace all these dead weights and dead wolves in every facet of our lives. So if it is local government that you are interested in, just go there and say, take it back. If it is your street that needs liberation, go there and say, take it back. If it is your state that needs liberation, go there and say, take it back. We must recover our space from these people. Street by street, village by village, town by town, city by city, senatorial zone by senatorial zone, and also zone by zone. But here is my message to you. They said they have 6 geopolitical zones. Please, they have 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria where they rotate power amongst themselves. We are not involved in power rotation, but we want to create our own 7th zone. And it is our turn to take power democratically, peacefully, come February 14, 2019. Take it back. So please, let me thank you profusely and also apologize for coming here a little late. Also, let me thank the organizers of this event. The national... Yes.
What? My name is Greg.
Yes. Greg, in particular, to my left here, they made this hall available to us for free. And as you know, if we were one of those big politicians, all of you would have been brought here, paid some money, given Ankara, and all those things that they use in detaining our future and changing our destiny. But I'm glad to note that you came here on your free volition, not mobilized or paid by anybody. The simple thing you want is that you want your country back. And there is no negotiation that needs to happen. We are not apologetic about it. We have suffered for too long. Suffered so much that people who are lazy are calling us lazy. The people who have never worked their entire lives but have been using Nigeria as their social security, they look at strong people like you, strong people like you, strong men like you, strong lady at the back, and say that they are lazy. This is one of the people that have never had more than 150 cows his entire life. And he's telling those of you who are working your behinds out that you are lazy. But you know what? That testimony or prophecy will come to pass that we are lazy if we don't go and obtain our PVC. Don't be lazy about that one. To show strength and to show that you are not lazy, it is not now, it is not on social media, it is not on radio, it's on February 14th, 2019. let's now tell them that we are not lazy. When we vote out the man who is there now, and we send him packing back to his village in Daura, we will be wearing his 150 cows. So let me briefly delve into why we are doing this and why this is possible. We know some young people who have been oppressed over the years. When they look at someone like me or you, they ask, why don't you go and start as a councillor? Why don't you go and start as a governor? Why don't you go and start as a senator? And my reply to them is that what I'm interested in is a big dream. And my dream is to lead Nigeria and take it from the incompetent, mediocre, corrupt people who have been mismanaging the country. So there is no need to go and start small, because what we need to be done has to be done in a big way. The task of fixing Nigeria is a big task that cannot be left to lazy people who have been running the country for years. And in doing this, we cannot just come here and not tell you what our plans are for you. And one of our big plans is actually to create employment for young people. And when we talk about employment, we are not talking about the kind of employment they provide for you, where after you become a PhD holder, your best job will be to be a driver to Dangote truck. That is not employment. The employment we are going to provide will happen after serious investment in this country's youth. And for me, the best employment you can provide will be meaningless if the person who is employed is not paid a living wage. You must have heard that we said we will provide a living wage of the minimum of 100,000 naira to workers in this country. And people have said, how are you going to pay for that? Right? It is because you don't know that some of us are very good mathematicians. We are good statisticians, and we have done our homework. What did we do? We looked at the federal workforce. There are only about 1 million workers in the federal workforce. Guess what? About 21% of them are ghost workers. So the money that they are paying to them is going into the pockets of all these thieves and directors who are managing the civil service. First, we will purge that workforce. Imagine that the Nigeria police has 80,000 ghost workers, and 80,000 employments would have made a lot of difference in this country. I can imagine how many ghost workers the Nigerian army has. I can imagine how many ghost workers you have in all the ministries, departments, and agencies in this country. Lots of them. First thing is to use technology to purge that list. And whoever is purged as a ghost worker, we will now employ people based on competence to take over the position of ghost workers and pay them very well. For the older generation of our workers, and some of them very corrupt directors in the civil service, we will encourage them to leave, because a lot of them are analog people. We want to enter into a digital era. We will pay them off, and we will aggressively fight corruption in the civil service in such a way that anybody that is caught with his hands in the cookie jar will not be spared. And the man who is talking to you is a solid anti-corruption fighter. I have been fighting corruption by myself in this country for the last 12 years. I have fought every possible person that is corrupt that I can find. I've stepped on toes such that I'm not afraid to say that I'm an equal opportunity offender to the corrupt and powerful and rich in Nigeria. But we will keep doing it for the sake of our future. What has happened to Nigeria is that they have stolen the future of Nigeria. And when you say you want to fix Nigeria, they say, where are you going to get the money? Money is everywhere. You saw from the last regime, after this new clueless regime came in, by the way, when we talk about ghost workers, the number one ghost worker in Nigeria is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We have to fire him. He has to be laid off. Yes, he has to be laid off because the man doesn't come to work. Last year, he spent 100 days outside of the country. He has violated his conditions of service and he must be laid off. By this time next year, he will have become, he must be on his way to Naura. So when we say that we want to do this, they say they don't have money. But you know that these guys are stealing over $5 billion every year through corruption. And when they are not stealing, they are rewarding themselves huge allowances. You saw our Nigerian Senate the other day. You saw the disgraceful conduct of senators who were fighting over maize. But these are the people we are paying 13 million naira as allowances per month. Apart from that, they take home another 200 million naira, which they call constituency projects that they never implement, in addition to their salaries. But where the real money is for them is extortion of the ministries, departments, and agencies of government, which they do through what they call oversight visits. If you let me provoke you and incite you, I will ask you to come with me that when I'm president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that we abolish the Nigerian Senate. We don't need a Nigerian Senate. I have lived in the US for 19 years, right? The US has 320 million people within its population. They only have 100 senators. But their economy is a $21 trillion economy. Nigeria, with 180,000 people, with an economy that is less than $21 billion, has 109 lazy senators. We can make do, we can get rid of them, use the money that they are taking, which is almost about 1.3 trillion naira per year, and invest in education. Or we can use it to pay our workers the $100,000 and 20,000 naira per month that we're talking. 100,000 naira is a small amount of money. We've gone around the streets and talked to workers. Workers in Nigeria are saying that their minimum wage should be around 250,000. That's the only way they can send their children to school, go to hospital, and go on vacation. The truth is that even neighboring countries or smaller countries like Mauritius are paying their workers minimum wage of $536. The minimum wage of a Nigerian worker is $49. It is not enough to buy recharge cards for so many of us here. Let's be honest. But that's not the only thing we want to do. We want to take care of security in this country. This country is undergoing some serious bleeding because the commander-in-chief of the armed forces is incompetent and absent from his position. You can imagine that the president of Nigeria sent the IG of police to go to Agatu. The IG did not go, he went to a party, and he's still the IG of the police. Under my watch, what betide you if I'm your commander and I ask you, I send you on an assignment and you don't go? You will be relieved of your position and you will be prosecuted for negligence of duty. Yes. The reason is this: I'm not going to be high-handed, but we just can't allow the kind of bloodletting that is going on in this country. We have Boko Haram in the north. We have herdsmen running riot everywhere across the country. Kidnappers are doing their own. Armed robbers are doing their own. pen robbers are doing their own. We need a commander-in-chief that is decisive and able to command his troops to stop all kinds of criminality, not only violent crimes. Take for example Boko Haram. The reason Boko Haram is flourishing in Nigeria is because Nigerian army generals are benefiting from insurgency. They don't want it to end. The other day, BBC reported that they already had Shekau within their custody and within range to be either annihilated or decimated. But the commander called them from Abuja and said they should stand down. That was how Shekau escaped from. And what happened the following week? Boko Haram walked into Dapchi and took 110 girls. When they were done with the negotiation they do at the back end, because we are now the biggest contributor to Boko Haram through ransom payments, the Boko Haram drove a convoy back to Dapchi and dropped the girls, still holding on to a girl who is a Christian. I am not talking religion here, I'm not religious in a way that I want to use to confuse you. But if Shekau had been dealt with when he was within range, we would probably never have had that. But look at herdsmen, what they are doing everywhere today is because they are aided by our security agencies. Or is it either they do it directly or they do it through negligence. Thorough, calculated negligence. So we take care of security, but another thing that is important for us is power in this country. When we say power, I mean real power, energy, electricity. Because if we can get it right with electricity, Nigeria will be all right. Nigeria or Nigerians are not lazy people. They are just looking for the enabling environment to carry out their ingenuity in a way that even the whole world would wonder where these people are coming from, Nigerians. Let me tell you, having seen how Nigerians flourish everywhere, that Nigeria is the only place where Nigerians don't do well. Even our police, as bad as they are, when they take them to go and do peacekeeping operations, they get award. Our army, as bad as they are, when they ask them to go and do peacekeeping operations, they suddenly know how to shoot and kill. But when it comes to here, nothing works for them. It is deliberate. Nigeria is being deliberately sabotaged so that it will not become a great nation that it should have been, both in Africa and the world. And people have been complaining, some people will tell you that it's a colonial arrangement. Yes, it is true that the colonial masters have set this place up as a mining site. But the colonial masters have been gone for 58 years now. They have left our brothers and sisters to manage us. And it turns out that our brothers and sisters, the competent, the corrupt, and the mediocre ones managing our affairs, just don't care about us. They only care about themselves. They only care for themselves. This is the reason we must take the country back. Let me move into infrastructure, that we can actually take care of this country infrastructurally. I've traveled by land as far as Kano. I have traveled from Owerri today to Onitsha and to Benin. And the leaders of this country ought to face the International Criminal Court of infrastructure because they have been committing crimes against our humanity. We spent over 30 minutes trying to get from some point A to B in Onitsha. The reason was a small pothole like this that could have taken just 1 hour to fix. Nobody would do it. The Nigerian government prefers to send the army to go and do Operation Python Dance 1 and 2 than to fix the road in Onitsha, which would have taken the Nigerian Army Corps of Engineers just 1 day to do. We are going to turn this country into a construction site where young people can find jobs to do, constructing power lines, roads, bridges, railway. I'm going to behave as if Nigeria is ground zero when I come to power, as if there's nothing in it, so that we start building rapidly again. And if you are wondering how will this happen, well, you better be ready. As I told an engineer in Kano when he called the radio station at 9 a.m. asking me that Buhari is doing well, I said, how do you know that Buhari is doing well? He didn't answer me because he had already left. But this is how I know that Buhari is not doing well. If you are an engineer who is calling a radio station at 9 a.m., that means you don't have a job. That during my own time, you will not have time to call a radio station because you'll be working so hard, you won't have time to touch your phone. That is the kind of country we need. And I move on there to corruption, anti-corruption. And in doing that, I want to recognize just quickly one of our anti-corruption fighters in the house, Reverend David Ugolo. Please stand up for recognition, Reverend. Reverend is someone I could have handed over the microphone to tell you my story about fighting corruption, because I have been doing it all by myself before anybody even started to do it. As you know, the joke about corruption in these days that the PDP will produce their own list, the APC will produce their own list. The reason is that nobody is fighting corruption, so it has become a joke. But when we come to office on May 29, 2019, the corrupt people in this country will no longer be smiling. And they won't have time to be bringing any lists. They will give them one big title that they have PhD. But I've called one of them before on the phone, the woman from Asaba, Delta State. I said, Madam, when I was in O-level, I read economics book by, I think, one Teriba, O-levels in economics. Madam, I've never read your economics book before. Where did you become an economist? She said, oh, no, I didn't say I'm an economist. It is Nigerian press that is calling me economist. I said, but you call yourself something minister, coordinating minister for the economy. The reason they bring them is that they feel that Nigerians have inferiority complex. So anything that is imported to us is original. But a lot of these people, they are fake people. What they call Baruf. Yes, Baruf in our area here. Please, let us create an economy that will work for us. We will break down this to you at the micro and macro economic level. The reason I know a lot about economics is not because I'm an economist. If economists can help Nigeria, Nigeria would have been the best country in the world. We have them all over the place, including on Facebook, by the way. Great economists. But what is not there are sincere, honest leaders who can make the wealth of this country percolate to the last person. And I'll tell you that I will do it. But I don't want to waste your time because you'll be waiting. I also want to talk about restructuring, because that's something that's very important to us. And this touches on our region, the Niger Delta region. Most of you don't know that I'm in Niger Delta. I am such a bad Niger Delta that I used to snoop to school in my primary school in Ilaje. And when people used to accuse me, how are you? When people used to accuse me that I'm fighting Jonathan because I'm Yoruba, they don't know that I'm a Joe Apoy from Ondo State. Most people don't know. But I'm not here to preach ethnicity to you. I just want you to know my roots. That I am such a southernized person. My roots start from Ekpe all the way to Bayelsa. Right? But one thing I've always hated is that even if you are my brother, all my brothers know it, if you steal, I will never be your friend. It's the reason I never supported Jonathan when he was stealing, when other people were supporting him. Because when Jonathan was being muzzled by the Yaradua cabal, I took his case on my back and made it possible for a minority to become a president in this country. Yes. But our minority brother was a disgrace to us. Forget about some of our brothers that became millionaires overnight. Good luck to them. But they could not complete the East-West Highway. Can you believe that? They didn't provide schools for the people of Niger Delta. They did not clean up Ogoni land. They did not provide education for our brothers. Of course, they created amnesty, which is fine. But the truth is that who was the biggest beneficiary of amnesty? It was mostly the people managing it. The man that has just been driven away from amnesty, Paul Boro, the EFCC said they got to his house and found that he has just dug out of the ground $10 million and ran away with it. $10 million could have done magic in the Niger Delta region. And that is where my position on restructuring comes in. Trust me, it is not a secret that I want the Niger Deltans to control their resources. Not a secret. I want us to control our resources. But Niger Delta, I'm your brother, be careful. Oil is going to become a commodity of yesterday. The number of years left for oil as a good commodity, as a great commodity, is no more than another 20 years. And between now and 20 years, prepare yourself for the future. And the future is knowledge-based economy. In fact, the future is technology. Please. And the only way we can prepare you for that is to invest the money we are still getting now on our youth, on education in particular. I want to see the Niger Delta of schools, Niger Delta of hospitals, Niger Delta of the greatest network of roads. But you cannot get that through the restructuring they are preaching today. This is where I disagree with the people who are doing restructuring. I am in support of it, but for me, the first restructuring that should happen in Nigeria is economic restructuring, where every one of us, particularly from the region where we are producing the gold, can taste our wealth. And it is not through handouts. See, the 135,000 naira our brothers are getting as former militants, whatever way they brand you, is actually a giveaway to put you to sleep. You deserve more than that. But it should not come in cash, because cash is also useless, as you know these days. We have to have restructuring debates with you and I seated in the room where it is taking place. With due respect to you, Niger Deltans, Olufalaye cannot help you to restructure Nigeria for you. Baba Edwin Clark, who is my good friend in those days, cannot restructure Nigeria for you. All these Babas, they restructure Nigeria for their pockets. And if you are saying that Buhari is too old to be our president, the people who are also fighting for restructuring are too old to restructure Nigeria for us. Let them go. Let them retire. And let us restructure the country for ourselves. Let the young people come together like we are in this room and discuss restructuring and determine what we want our future to be. I don't want to be represented anymore by any 80-year-old, 75-year-old, or even a 65-year-old person who has been taking care of himself for so long that he doesn't care about me. I want to have the conversation with those of you who care about your future. We are not on this restructuring discussion table. That is the truth. They are just talking over us and talking at us. They don't invite us to their meetings. You have seen their meetings. Olufalaye meets Baba Edwin Clark and they meet with another old person in the east. It's just a circulation of old people. Please, with due respect, I want restructuring, but now you understand my position on restructuring. It has to happen with all of us on the table. And first and foremost, I think representation of people like me will make you love restructuring. Because when I become president, he will be president of Nigeria. and president for justice for all Nigerians. Reason why I will not say that Niger Delta should just take all their resources is that we are known as generous people, right? So we can give some to our brothers. By the way, I want to congratulate you over the defeat of the cabal in your school, the vice chancellor, which we did together. There's no cabal that can come near us. We are doing this to defeat all the cabals in the country, particularly the economic cabal, the socio-political cabal, the cultural cabal, even in some cases the religious cabal in the country. We are doing this to ensure that we take them out of our way so that we can move to progress and prosperity. I don't have any of such relationships. As I'm talking to you today, brother, just to let you understand how bad they are and how bad I can be. I don't have an account in Nigeria. Because last year, when I came to set up Sahara Reporters, Saraki got a court judgment and seized all the money I have. But since I came into this country, I have never liked a single kobo because people are supporting the big dream we had. If I had a cabal behind me, I would not be able to confront the Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shitu, that analog man in Ibadan. Yes. I would not have had the guts to confront him and use him as a mop to clean the floor for the future. So there's no cabal in our system. I don't have the tolerance for cabal, and our coming to power is the end of cabalocracy in Nigeria. Thank you.
I agree you are a man. I agree you are somebody. I know you are. Now, God between the essence of all the other world. Now we have got the children of nowadays. We have got classification of our sides. Our islands are small as wicked ocean. How do we repair Nigeria? When our eyes is as wide as the ocean. Now, if we use time to bring up into it, then we can.
What you said. The youth are already disoriented with corruption. How do you want to reorientate them?
What have we done with the school? What are your messages now? And tell us how the elders have been, and we have spoken about that. We agree that when we use this, that will be better.
And then the grassroots. How do you want to reach the grassroots?
How do you now get employment? You understand? At the federal level. When we have
thank you, sir. People question your questions, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. President,
Sir? Yeah.
I'm so relieved.
Yeah. When we are done, outside.
I feel relaxed being Nigeria now. For me to see the economy that is coming up and the vision and everything that I want of a leader to be. But you know, one of our greatest problem we have in this country that is judiciary. Because when they expect someone that's stolen the billions of dollars, even in Naira, then at the end, go and pay a bookie or we find out a 2 million Naira or whatever, or probably taking to a jail of 2 years. But after they come out and they battery all over. So how do we talk to the person and to be very effective?
All right,
enough.
We do. We need population control from a health perspective.
Policy of population control.
Policy of population control policy. Yes. Sorry, you can take now.
Yeah. Okay. Please, greetings, Nigerian people. If we can keep it orderly so that we can engage very well, I will appreciate that. The first question is the reorientation of the youth. That is a very deep question, considering that our young people have been misled and they have become disoriented to the happenings around them, and some of them have also become apprentices to the thieves in this country. But here is what I will say to you. The people that are in this room today are also young people. And you have come from wherever you are, having not been paid by anybody to come and change ideas with a young presidential aspirant like yourselves. There's nothing wrong with the youth. The problem are the elders. They say that when a fish is rotting at the head, then there's nothing you can do to the body. If you have real good leaders in this country, you'll be surprised how many good youths are out there. They far outnumber the bad youths. There are only a few bad young people. In fact, there are only a few bad Nigerians. There are not many. But the problem over these years has been that the good Nigerians are always afraid. Even though they are majority, they are afraid of the few bad ones. One of the examples I give is Facebook. When you write your status updates, there are two categories of people that are interacting and reacting to status updates. The good ones, they will not say anything. They will like your comment, they will like the status update. You see 200 likes. Good people, they like what you are doing, they are smiling at you. But there will be these 5 bad guys on your status page. They will be writing comment upon comment and attacking every other person until everybody runs away from. But I asked myself, what if the 200 who were just liking actually confronted the 5 would have been the ones who would run away. That is what Nigeria has become. It has become that bad conduct is now codified in the country. We will reorientate our youth, but first and foremost, let's orientate our leaders. Let's choose leaders that we can trust, who are tested, trusted, and have integrity. And you'll be surprised at the kind of youth you have in this country. The example I have is very simple. I see young Nigerians who travel out of this country, and the moment they land in the other country that they are going to, they become the best people, best examples of hard work. When I went to the US, everybody wanted to hire me because they said Nigerians are very hard-working people. Of course, there are some few Nigerians also who are doing credit card fraud, but there are few. So let us elect good leaders so that we can have good followers. Reaching out to the grassroots and the issue of employment. You see, let me explain to you. You have to redefine what is grassroots these days. The grassroots that you think used to exist before no longer exists too. Even my grandmother, who is 95 years old in Ondo State, she knows what is going on Facebook. She gets to see what is going on WhatsApp. She might also have a bank account somewhere. So there's engagement at all levels. Whatever we are doing here tonight is reaching all over the world through Facebook Live. It's reaching people through Twitter, Instagram. It's also reaching people through WhatsApp. So grassroots, the dynamics of grassroots keep changing. But the most important thing is also to let you know that this is a disruptive campaign that is trying seriously to create parallel structures that will bypass the very difficult grassroots. Because I know when people are talking grassroots, they don't make grassroots. They are talking about the politics of rice and the Congo of rice and Gary that they distribute, and the 500 naira. That is the meaning of grassroots that you are talking about. The real grassroots people are looking for a different country. Employment, I answered the question and I'll say it again. The best way to create employment in this country is to invest in infrastructure, is to invest in agriculture, is to invest in small businesses. I just came from Onitsha, where I promised that the interest rate that people pay to get loans from bank is the worst in the world. Nigeria's interest rate is about 20-something%. There's no way you can make profit when you borrow at 20-something% interest rate. And any country that do not have small businesses blossoming cannot get itself out of penury. So we have to control our interest rates. The government must consciously reduce interest rates in certain areas, especially for small business owners, so that people can borrow, invest, and create employment. Government cannot create employment for everybody. It's not possible. We are 198 million Nigerians now. The size of the federal workforce is maybe about 1 million plus. But if you allow other sectors in our society to flourish and blossom, people will get employment. Every time you hire a driver to work for you and you pay him some money, you are supporting 10 people because of our family system. So we can create employment by investing in infrastructure, in agriculture, in education. We want to hire 200,000 teachers. I told you that we want to purge the civil service of 80,000 fake policemen and put in another 80,000 real policemen, and withdraw the policemen that are guarding and protecting thieves to go to parties and their children and make them work for the Nigerian people. That's real employment right there. And we'll keep building upon the number of houses we need in this country is 17 million units of housing. We can make you build it when we invest in it, in a way that someone who wants a house don't have to pay down payment. You just go to a bank, get a loan, what they call mortgage bank loan, and you pay it back over 30 years. And you own a house that you can call your own. That is how it is done in other places. So employment, you get plenty of it. Like I said, be ready to work so that nobody will call you lazy ever again. Judiciary and corruption and independence of oh my God, I know what judges can do. David Ugolo, Reverend, knows what we do to these judges. We know all the corrupt judges in this country. We have their names on Sahara Reporters. This is what I've been doing for 12 years. If I come to power, I know all the corrupt judges, and the ones that are not known yet, we know how to catch them. It's very easy. In fact, Justice Esho Late already had a compilation of corrupt judges and all the corruption that they got involved with. But when you have weak leaders who are not capable of being decisive against corrupt individuals, you cannot fight even common policemen. All of us abuse policemen all the time. Policemen are probably the least corrupt in terms of the corruption categories in this country. In fact, some of our friends who are journalists are more corrupt than policemen because they can never do any coverage without asking for brown envelope. So corruption is very endemic, but the judges that are letting people go who are thieves, we also have to follow them where they should be. So don't worry about that. I know how to handle that. Do we need population control? I think we already do population control. And we've had a policy of population control. The truth is that the reason our parents used to have a lot of kids is because they wanted to live honest lives. They wanted to farm. My father had 20 kids before he died, and there are 16 of us still alive. Some of my brothers are in here today. I started fishing for the entire family at the age of 9. When I was 11 years old, 12 years old, I started riding Okada. When Okada was not popular, I was an Okada rider, helping market women to carry gari, boko gari, to market every 9 days in my village. That was the reason why our parents had us, so that they can use us as beasts of burden to support them. And children in African setting are social security for their parents. Because we don't treat our parents the way Americans treat their parents. America, if you are a parent, you are sick, your children will just carry you and put you in an old people's home, visiting you every week. Sometimes they don't even have time to see you. In Africa, we have a different culture. And our population control policy must take into cognizance our culture. It must take into cognizance our religious beliefs, you know. It cannot just be some kind of population control that some Oyibo man brought and say, here is the pills, just be taking the pills. Here is the inoculation or the injection. You have to be careful with some of those things because they have neo-colonial implications. They don't want Africa to succeed. They don't like strong Africans. So, you know, somebody spending 24 years in jail when he was arrested when he was in his 60s. He'll be 80 by the time he comes out. That is as good as capital punishment now. Zero account in the federal account. Let me tell you, they lie to you all the time that they can loot Nigeria. If Nigeria could be looted to zero, Nigeria would have been sold at an auction by Babangida. That's the truth. The truth is that Nigeria makes money on a daily basis. From oil, from taxes, custom excise and duties. In fact, there are countries around Nigeria, countries like Togo, Benin, up to Ghana, that are living up for the revenue that Nigeria ought to be making, or the leakages of our economy. Nigeria can never be looted to zero. It's not possible because they make money on a daily basis. But what is the difference when you make money and it is stolen? Okay, let's do the calculation. For instance, let's do this very simple calculation. If we're exporting 2.5 million barrels of oil on a daily basis at $72, let's say $70 per barrel, how much does that give you per day? Any mathematicians in the house? Any mathematicians in the house? Whatever it is that you get from it can take care of immediate needs of Nigeria on a daily basis. But that's not the only amount of money we make. This year, and listen to me so that you can get the point very clear, the federal government claimed that the Federal Inland Revenue Service made 4.3 trillion naira. Nigerian Customs made almost 2 trillion naira, right? Even JAMB is making money. EFCC recovered over 800 billion naira. And what is the budget of Nigeria this year? 8 trillion naira. That means that without even adding NNPC to it, we have already made our budget from certain ministries and revenue generating agencies. But because the man at the center doesn't know his left from his right, when they set up TSA, the Treasury Single Account, the cabal in the presidency went and started exempting the NNPC accounts from it. Even as bad as one senator is, he found out that Skybank had 135 million naira account owned by the NNPC, and the account is being operated by individuals at the NNPC. So if you bring all our accounts together in the TSA and we don't accept any account, we will be making huge amounts of money on a daily basis that can service this country. The way to put it to you is this. There's an old adage that says that for the greedy, there can never be enough. And for those in need, there will always be enough. So there is enough to go around those who are in need. But there's not enough to go around to even give to one greedy person in this country. So we have money. Don't be under any illusion that Nigeria don't have money or Nigeria can never be broke. It's not possible. It is broke because we don't have people who can manage Nigeria's economy very well. And the brokenness of Nigeria is man-made. Education, education, education. I said it yesterday in Owerri before youth that the first thing we must do is invest in our youth in education. And we are going to look at every student in our higher institution and give them, not give them, but invest 50,000 naira each on every student. When I say invest, don't get me wrong, you are not getting it as a bursary. But it will go to the proper channel so that the universities can be getting the kind of funding they need for students. So that students who are indigent, for example, who cannot pay their school fees, will not be prevented from getting their certificates when they are done. And we will look at all the options of funding education in such a way that education might actually become almost free for primary, secondary, and partially for university education in the country. Because if you know how much these guys are stealing from TED Fund alone, you will understand why we should not be having any complaints about. We shouldn't, if they don't steal, the taxes, the education tax and TED Fund and other interventionist funding we have would have taken care of free education for all our universities. We don't have that many students. University of Calabar, we've looked at it, has the highest number of students. There are only 48,000 students there. And there are about 40-something universities across Nigeria. But we went to the NUC. The NUC cannot tell you the number of students in Nigeria because they use the number to manipulate their budgets. So we will invest in education, and the person that is talking to you, I'm the son of a teacher, and I'm also a teacher. And that's why I turned out this way. You know, two people, children of two people always turn out very bad. Teachers and reverends. Reverend Ugolo, watch your children. Ideology, oh my God. I hear this all the time. I have been through all the ideological planes in the world. But there's something I have to tell you, which is important. If we want to make Nigeria work, we cannot be dogmatic about some ideological leaning that came from abroad. When the Chinese people wanted to fix their country, they came with a combination of a little bit of everything. When it was convenient to be a communist, Chinese people were communists. When capitalism worked for them, they jumped into bed with capitalists. When socialism worked for them, they jumped into bed with socialism. And today you cannot tell what ideological basis the Chinese economy is based upon, but you can understand one thing, that when they tell you somebody is a Chinese person, it means something. And I think that's what we should do about Nigeria. Let us create a country where people will be calling us Nigerians, a country of people that have formed their own ideology to survive and make their lives better, brought progress to their country and prosperity. That would be the biggest ideology that I can take out of government.